All right, welcome to the Snowflake Sports Podcast. It is approximately 8:45 Eastern Standard Time, and I am joined by the incredible, the most wonderful man in the entire world and Los Angeles. It is Joseph Crespo. How you doing, Joe?
Oh, that's quite an entrance. I appreciate that. Yeah,
Trying to expand,
I'm doing really well now. Holy shit!
Yeah,
that was awesome. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, no problem. All right, just to go off of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about the NBA play-in tournament. We're going to talk briefly at the beginning, at least, about how the Clippers kind of tanked to avoid the Lakers side of the bracket. Then we're going to talk about NBA first-round matchups, which ones we're most interested in. Then the Israel-Palestine conflict, and then we're going to end on a high note, talking about TV, movies, book recommendations. So let's get with it. So you're in Los Angeles, and the Clippers ended up they lost to the Rockets at first, and they sat both Kawhi and Paul George for the game against the Rockets, and then they sat also against the Thunder, who just let that Pooh guy. I never know how to say his name right, but like the 7 foot 160 pound menace do his thing, and they lost the 2 games. Now they're playing the Mavs. They're on the 4-5 side. So if the Lakers win tonight against the Golden State, then they'll only meet in the conference finals. So I guess just what are your thoughts on the Clippers just trying to avoid them?
It's horrendous. How could you do this? I'm doing my best Stephen A. You know, how could you do this? This is basketball. Yeah. This is professional basketball. You get paid to play the game. And blah blah blah. So, no, but I mean, is anybody actually taking that seriously? That the Clippers didn't play their starters in the last 2 games of the season? I understand competitiveness, and everything. I know Ty Lue, the coach, did say, he was like, we thought that rest was better than rust, right?
Okay.
So, and also it's not like the Clippers haven't sat their players in important games in the past. So, I mean, they knew that they were going to the playoffs. They knew they were playing shitty teams. They were like, this has no basis in the playoffs other than seeding, but I guess they care about the playoffs as a whole, I guess, more than just seeding. And to go to the point where they tanked to avoid the Lakers, I don't think it does it. I like the Lakers better. I will say that. And I think it's more hype in the future if they do meet in the conference finals, kind of like they should have last year, but the Clippers lost to the Nuggets in the bubble. So, I mean, maybe it was an NBA directive to be like, hey, they whispering in the ear over the shoulder, just saying, hey, why don't you guys tank these 2 games and it'll be an LA versus LA matchup in the conference finals.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, maybe they got paid off, I don't know.
So the one thing though,
I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, I guess. But the one thing I don't get is if anything, wouldn't you want to face the Lakers sooner or earlier in the playoffs? Because LeBron's barely coming back. Anthony Davis has had injury issues. They have had no time. So why would you want them to have 2 series under their belts and then play them later? I don't really understand that logic. And then on the flip side, why would you also want to play the Mavs in the first round? The Mavs have been red hot recently. Wouldn't you want to play the Blazers, who are terrible on defense, and you could probably shut them down with your 2, wing defenders in Paul George and Kawhi? And Patrick Beverly can get in Dame's face, and that would just be a fun matchup because Pat Beverly and Dame hate each other. But why are you trying to avoid them earlier? You should want to play them earlier. You should try to get them out of the way. And also, just from an entertainment standpoint, it would probably more likely happen because the Blazers would beat, or the Clippers would beat the Blazers, and the Lakers would beat the Suns. You would think. and it's just I don't really get it. Like, and it's not like they were like Paul George was like fine, I think, at the end of the season. So like, why are you trying to rest him for two? Like, I don't know. It was just weird. I don't really get it.
It's funny too that you did mention that, they could have, that you would potentially want to see them earlier, but because also there's no guarantee that the Clippers will make the finals. The conference finals. There's no guarantee that the Lakers will make the conference finals. Like, it's not, and I mean, there's no guarantee that they would have won those games either, even if they had the starters. But, most likely.
They probably would have won. Like, both those teams are bad.
They probably would have won. Yeah, they're both at the bottom of the West.
Yeah. They're
not very good.
I can't even name, like, because is Christian Wood on the Rockets? He might be. Oh, and John Wall. Okay. But
oh my God.
That's about it. That team is just, like, a completely different team then.
I mean, James Harden leaves, and what do you got?
Just a bunch of
nothing. Literally
nothing.
And now you know why he wanted to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Without him, they're trash.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
So, literally the worst in the league.
Yeah.
Without James Harden.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to the NBA play-in tournament. So first off, I just kind of want to get your take on the play-in tournament. Like, do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think it should be abolished or whatever? What's your take?
I think it's interesting. It adds more interest into the playoffs, just because, if you're a 9 in the past, if you're the 9 seed and you're like, a few games away, there's no reason for you to like play well or whatever, you're kind of like, screw it. Like, it's not close. It doesn't matter. Like, the games don't matter. So it makes the end of the season at least a little more interesting. And I can see why the NBA would want the play-in tournament, to keep more interest in the final games season. And then it also, you're fighting, these teams are fighting for a playoff spot. So there's no guarantees if you're like 7-8 and you just squeaked in like 7-8. I guess it sucks if those teams, but also, you got to prove your worth basically at that point. So, I mean, in my opinion, I kind of like that these teams do have to prove that, hey, we are worth being in the playoffs by, beating these other teams at the end to get that spot.
Gotcha.
What do you think about it?
So I was never a fan. So my whole thing was, and I didn't even understand the whole rules of the play-in tournament, because I thought like they would consider the 20 teams part of the playoffs, but they only really consider like the 16, the top 8 of each conference that are part of like the playoffs and like that. Like, my whole thing was like, so like, how the Bills had that very long like 18-year drought and how just like incredible it was to make the playoffs. So like, I feel like when you add more teams to make the playoffs, you lose that like glory you get from like just making it, especially for like the worst kind of crappier teams. But then it's like, okay, like it's really still the top 8. But my whole thing was, so like the last game of the season, right? So last like day of the season. So the Wizards played the Hornets, which was like, if there was no play-in tournament, that would have been like an actually more impactful game, because that was like for the 8 seed. Like, the Wizards win that game to get the 8 seed, and luckily they got that because they lost to the Celtics last night. And then on the other side, the Warriors played the Grizzlies, and I believe that caused the Warriors to jump the Grizzlies in the standings. Or if like the Warriors lost that game, then the Warriors would have been the 9-10 game, or like that's happening right now instead of being in the 7-8 one. So it's like I felt like the games actually lost less importance near the end of the season. And then the whole thing with like the tanking and everything, like I don't think the Wizards started off awful, but like especially the way that like Russell Westbrook plays, or the way that team is like built, I don't think they were looking to tank. Like, they were still looking to win now with those, like with Bradley Beal and his whole contract being up, and just trying to keep him happy. Like they didn't want to be like bottom dwellers on that. So it's just like I don't understand. Like I felt like the teams who were tanking were gonna tank anyways, even without this like extra play-in thing. But like obviously that didn't really happen. So I don't, it's probably good in the long run though, because teams won't like you saw in the trade market, like people did not want to sell any of their good players. So it kept like teams more intact and they were more maybe suited to run, or even like the Bulls, how they traded for Vucevic and thought they would go on a playoff run and totally crapped out. But like I don't know that it's gonna completely like solve tanking. But I mean, I guess it's one way to do it, and you should at least like give the NBA praise for trying.
Yeah, so. I think and I think that at least giving like the not, because you said like, oh yeah, that game versus the Hornets and the Washington didn't really matter, but it kind of does, because getting the 8th seed is worth a lot more than getting the 9 or 10 seed, because you get that extra elimination. Like you get like Washington lost to Boston, but they're still in the running for the 8th seed, whereas the Hornets lost to the Pacers and they're out. They didn't make the playoffs. So like that extra life, I guess you could say, is really important and gives you an extra chance to actually make the playoffs. So I'd argue that it's actually, maybe that game actually was really important for seeding in the play-in tournament.
I mean, I guess, but like if you were in the old system, then it would have been more important, because like it's like, oh shit, like we have to win or we're out. If we lose, True. We have at least one game to like recuperate and everything. But
that's true. It would be more important, but it doesn't make it not important to win that game.
Yeah, that's true.
It doesn't eliminate the importance of the game.
Yeah.
It just makes it a little less important, because like the Hornets could be like, oh yeah, we don't have to win this, whatever. We have the play-in tournament, but it does matter because, as we saw, like I said, Hornets lost, they're out.
Right.
Washington lost, they're still in it.
Yeah, true. It's still important. Yeah. Plus, like, what is the likelihood that like next year it'll be 2 8-9s playing each other and the last game of the season?
Yeah.
Like that's just very unlikely.
And that's exactly it too. That's another like. The scheduling they make way before the season even starts, so it's not really likely that it'll happen like the same way too. Like it all depends. It's always nice when you get important matchups at the end of the season too.
Yeah, definitely.
I like the plan. I think it's a good idea. I think it adds interest and more drama, which sells seats and sells like people watching the game, sort of,
Yeah, I mean it absolutely helped like the last month of this season. Like I felt like there was actual interest in it.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if that's just because the Lakers are a play-in team. Like how likely is that going to happen in the future, or was it like actual like, oh, we actually care about these like lower seeds now, and all these teams are like in it, and like the race between like, oh, should we try and get to 7th, like the 6th seed is trying to avoid the playing game and like trying to get to 9-10. Mm-hmm. Like it's I can't tell if that's just like new and fun, or if it like will actually be fun in the future. But overall it's probably still a good idea. I think I've come around to it. I think at least now.
I think when you start getting used to it, you might come around.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'll be more like ingrained, like, oh, this is the system.
Right. Yeah. All right. Recapping last night's games. So Indiana smoked Charlotte to eliminate the Hornets, 144-117. And this game was basically over at halftime because the Pacers were up by 24. And O'Shea Brissett, Syracuse alum and Toronto native, he put up 23 points on a very efficient shooting night.
Wow.
They kind of killed it. Like Sabonis had like 20 rebounds, all this stuff. So what do you think about the Pacers killing the Hornets? Do you think it's a big deal? Nothing at all, but
like they both are under 500 for the season. I mean, they didn't have like one dude like score a ton like in the other game, which to me is like, okay, they're playing like a team game, you know. They got a bunch of dudes that can score. But other than that, I don't know. I don't have much to say about this game other than just Indiana just destroyed
Yeah.
the Hornets, and the Hornets, they're out, and you know, maybe next year, but maybe not.
I think the LaMelo Ball hype has kind of pretty much just gone downhill now.
Dude, oh my God, the beginning of the season was just everything he did. Oh my God, LaMelo Ball with all these, even in like the was it the preseason or summer, whatever?
Summer League, yeah.
They were playing preseason games, and he was like making crazy like passes, and everybody was just like, wow, this guy's so good, and you know.
Yeah.
It is his first year, so I guess you can't say too much bad, but
yeah,
you know, he didn't play very well this game, and it showed, and his team couldn't make up for it.
Yeah.
So
I just kind of felt bad because this team kind of went downhill once they lost Gordon Hayward and everything, and they just couldn't really find the offensive firepower. Terry Rozier has been an absolute monster in like the fourth quarter and all these like clutch like stats and everything. But if it's just him, like that's pretty easy to shut down. And then
and look, he went 0 for 9 with 3 points.
Yeah, sure. he did not do great. But like LaMelo though, I think it's obvious that he's like the best ball brother. Like Lonzo had a pretty down year for the Pelicans, and like even like his passing and his like defense are like his like higher like qualities as a basketball player. But I think just LaMelo is just like a funner player to watch. Just because he can shoot like the lights.
He brings a different element for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think anyone thought this Hornets team would be even remotely good. And they came out of the gates and then just kind of like dropped off. So I mean, kudos to them. If Gordon Hayward can play like a full season, like this team could be like a better like a 6 seed, you know, like a first round out kind of thing. And I don't think they have anything to shy away from. The Pacers, to me though, I don't know. So like I feel like they should be a lot better. Like Sabonis as like a center and like a four, like it's just I feel like a monster. Like he grabbed 20 rebounds this game. And like the way they use him on like the pick and roll, and they got Brogdon back now. Like O'Shea Brissett is doing stupid things, which is just crazy in my mind because like he was like a G League Toronto Raptor player, and then like somehow he's like starting on this team and producing things. But I don't know, we'll see. Like so leading into the next game, so Boston kind of upset the Wizards, even though like they were technically the 7th seed. They won 118-100, being straight up carried by Tatum's 50 points, and then Kemba also had 29, so they had a ton of their production. So what did you think about the Celtics winning? Were you a little disappointed in the Wizards or anything? Or?
Well, I just thought it was crazy because literally they just got carried by Tatum. By Jason Tatum, and Kemba Walker did really well too, and no other Celtics scored more than 12. Tristan Thompson scored 12, and nobody scored more than that other than Kemba and Jason Tatum. So like, I don't know, like, can you depend on that the whole playoffs? Probably not, because they're just gonna neutralize Jason Tatum. Like teams can just, not every team, but like teams can try to just neutralize Tatum and just like focus on him. And will they have someone else needs to step up on the Celtics, basically. You know, Kemba can't do it by himself either. So, like, it's great that they won, and they won pretty handily at the end, but that's not very inspiring of a win.
Yeah. I agree. And also, Jason Tatum, he went to the line 17 times. And got them all. So and like kudos to him. Series
in, series out, in order for them to get far in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. But I don't know, it's because Jaylen Brown got hurt this year, so like he's been out for I don't know a couple months now. So this team is just really not. They don't have a good like bench really. like Romeo Langford is like coming off the bench. It's just
Yeah.
like, okay, man, like, and he only had 3 points this game. He didn't really get any rebounds or any assists or anything. So it's like your team really is like Tatum and Kemba, and Kemba he's shown like spurts at the end of the season, but like, can he keep this up consistently is like the bigger problem. And then, I mean, now they're going to go in and they're going to have to play the Nets, and the Nets who've barely played with each other, but like have the offensive firepower of like the Death Star or whatever. But like, I don't know. So it's just to me, like, I thought the Wizards kind of had this. Like, I thought they had the two better players in Westbrook and Bradley Beal. Westbrook kind of had like whatever every Westbrook hater would like him to have, and just having an inefficient shooting night. Because 0 for 4 from 3, like, he just kind of is like all over the place. Still gets 14 rebounds though. So still is like contributing, and like Bradley Beal like kind of had an off night though, like still dropped 22. But like he just, I don't know. So it's just like I felt like they were like the hot ones, like going in, like, oh yeah, we're gonna be the 7th seed. We'll give the Nets like a little like a fun gentleman sweep. And they just kind of fell flat. And maybe it's not exactly that they fell flat. Maybe it's just because Tatum literally dropped 50 on them. But like the Celtics team, I just
an unlucky night at that point,
Yeah, true. This like Celtics team though, I don't see them like even winning a game against the Nets. Versus like, I think the Wizards will probably beat the Pacers. I'm hoping for a better outing by Westbrook. But then I guess when they get matched up against the Sixers, like it's going to be a nightmare because they're going to be so much bigger than them. So
yeah.
So you have the Wizards too?
I mean, I agree. The Wizards, I think so. Just like this game in particular is just the Wizards not being consistent.
Yeah.
And like faltering a bit, and then Boston, at least Tatum and Kemba, just like being very consistent and being on. So I don't know. It's an unlucky night for them for sure when their stars aren't like balling out the way the other stars are.
Yeah.
So, but I do think they beat the Pacers in the next game. I think. I don't know, man. Westbrook's got to step it up for sure. Which typically he's kind of like the superstar in the regular season, and then postseason comes around, if he even makes the postseason, and it's just kind of falls flat,
Yeah. He gets that like tunnel vision, like throws it out of bounds or something. It was really just like his shot has just kind of gone away, which is kind of sad. From the back in the day, Westbrook.
Yeah.
But
he used to be the pull-up king, dude.
Oh yeah.
Just
in
run
your
in
face.
100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then stop on a dime, pull up, and like make it. Oh man.
Yeah. Killing it.
Those are the days.
Those OKC days. All right, so NBA first round matchups. So out of the, I guess we know that it's Nets Celtics. So out of the other, like the 3-6, 4-5, or any other, even if like, let's just assume that the Lakers are gonna beat the Warriors, so then they go play the Suns. Which one of these are the most intriguing to you?
The what? I'm sorry. The first round you're saying?
Yeah. Like Bucks Heat, rematch.
Okay.
Blazers Nuggets maybe, but
yeah, I think it's. I was looking at them, and I was looking at every game, and I was like, damn, there's like pretty good storylines for like every game. Like like you said, like you assume that the Liz beat the Warriors, they play against the Suns and stuff. Warriors against Utah, that's whatever. I really do think that the Bucks might like the Bucks versus Miami Heat is really interesting, just based off last year in the bubble, the playoff bubble, where no one really thought the Heat were gonna beat the Bucks, and they came and like pretty handily beat them, and made it all the way to the finals. I think that this is a rematch that is extremely important for both of these teams. The Bucks have to show that they can beat Miami, I guess, and Miami, they want to show that last year wasn't a fluke. So I think that is probably the most interesting matchup to me, just because of the past and what's happened in the past, and how are these teams gonna do this year? How are they gonna perform this year?
Yeah, I think that's
especially the Bucks not being like top dog anymore.
Right, that's true. But they're looking pretty good. I think this team looks better to be poised in the playoffs, just even with that addition of Drew Holiday. Like, I thought Drew Holiday was a good pickup, but he's been like exactly what they need.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially like someone who in like crunch time they could actually like depend on, or like so like Giannis doesn't have the ball in his hands. They could use him more as like the screener. But yeah, definitely that game I think is the most interesting. But like another one that I really want to see is the Blazers versus the Nuggets. Just because like it's that 2 years ago they were in the Western Conference semifinals and went to 7. It was very close. That was like right before the Nuggets, made the conference finals and the bubble and all that stuff. But like the Nuggets, they lose Jamal Murray like a little more than a month ago, and like didn't really fall flat, like per se. Like I know that we talked earlier about how the Clippers basically tanked to get the 4 seed, but they still kept like the 3rd seed. Like you'd think they would have fallen kind of off a cliff, even though Jokic, won the unanimous MVP and has been absolutely incredible. Now they have Aaron Gordon, and like this team plays like a really good like team offense, but it's just kind of it's weird that they're in their spot, and like I wouldn't say that the Blazers are going to beat them just because like their defense is still like at the bottom of the NBA, but like they killed them at the last game of the season, even though the Blazers had much more to play for than the Nuggets did, and like maybe they could do that. Like Nurkic used to play for the Nuggets, and like they had to trade him away because Jokic was getting too much time, so maybe there's a little disgruntled there. It's like the weird like Denver, Portland, being like the pothead like areas of like teams, like just being like a little off the radar in like NBA circles. Like I just think that's a little more intriguing. I guess at least on the Western side, because like if the Lakers win and they play the Suns, like that's kind of like it's interesting, but I also feel like bad for the Suns that they just like. They have a great season, and it's incredible, and then they just
like
yeah. So
well, it's not like there's no guarantees there. Like the Suns are a really, really good team. Devin Booker's like insane, and Chris Paul is showing he's still a great player. He's an MVP candidate. Like that'll still be a really good matchup nonetheless. And it's no pushover for the Lakers.
Yeah, that's true. And they
I was gonna say I think. Oh, what do you? What?
No, I was just gonna say the Suns actually beat the Lakers twice this year, so like, that could totally be a good series. So
yeah, exactly. Unless you need playoff LeBron really,
right,
to like just be a beast.
Yeah.
Basically all playoffs, of course, but I was thinking too, because the first matchup that came to mind was the Bucks and the Heat, and I really thought in the East that another interesting matchup is the Knicks versus the Hawks. This is like the first season that the Knicks have made the playoffs in I don't know how long.
Like 2013,
over a decade, right? Like
so, like 7 years.
Okay, so like 7, 8 years. They haven't made the playoffs, and they finally make it back. And then the Hawks aren't. I don't know. They haven't been a consistently good team in the last few years either. I just think it's really interesting based on like the Knicks finally getting the playoffs, and they're playing against a team that maybe they can realistically beat and make it to the next round. I think that's a pretty compelling series right there to watch and see like, oh man, can the Knicks do it? Can the Knicks, the first year they make the playoffs, make it to the conference semifinals?
They actually win a series. Yeah.
Yeah, right? Like,
yeah.
That'd be pretty cool to see, honestly. I mean, I don't really like the Knicks, but like I said, like that's, if I told you that was gonna happen last year, no one would have said, oh yeah, I think the Knicks will make the playoffs. No one would have guessed that, right?
Oh, absolutely not.
Without like a huge amount of faith, you know?
Yeah.
Unless you were a Knicks fan and just like blindly saying, yeah, we're gonna make the playoffs. Like no one was thinking the Knicks would actually make the playoffs.
Yeah. I don't even think Knicks fans thought they'd be this good. They were like, yeah, like RJ's gonna get his reps in. We'll be like around the play-in tournament, you know, be one of the 10 seeds.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they're a 4
seed, like,
yeah, it's incredible.
Like I think that alone is just like so compelling to be like, wow, I want to watch this series if Knicks can do anything.
Yeah, that's true. And like, I think the last game they played, or one of the games they played, went to overtime. Like that's going to be a tight, like 6-7 game series. So that's going to be one absolutely to tune into.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm trying to look. So Julius Randle, did he win the most improved player? Has that been announced yet? Because I feel like he should. Just with his
I don't know.
ascension.
I don't think so.
But yeah. I mean, I like that. So one thing that I'm like slightly disappointed though is like since the Nets kind of, I wouldn't say they tanked, but they like rested like KD occasionally, and then like Harden and Kyrie would just like do his own thing randomly. I would love if the Knicks won and then they played the Nets, because that would have been amazing. Because like there'd be so many like Knicks fans.
The New York matchup.
Like the Barclays, like there would be not as many Nets fans. It's just like oh, they would just get so hyped, and I don't know, that would have been great. They probably would have lost. Like that would have been like a sweep probably, but it just would have been so much fun.
Yeah.
But
I agree. Like that would be crazy to see, just like the amount of fans, like opposing fans at the home court.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd
but
be nuts.
We do have a world where it is possible that it is New York versus New York, and then an LA versus LA. So big market supreme conference finals.
Dude, I wonder what the betting odds for that is. There has to be betting odds for that.
Yeah, it's got to be. You win a decent amount of money because I don't think anyone thinks the Knicks are going to get past the Sixers.
Oh, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
The other 3 teams, though, I feel like could it get there? Like definitely.
Yeah.
Have better odds.
I mean, you can never count the Lakers out, right?
Yeah.
Clippers are really good. You can't really count them out with the team they have. And then Brooklyn is just I would think that everybody thinks that they're going to make the conference finals at least.
Yeah.
Like they're just too good. Like they have too many good players.
Yeah. Hopefully this is the year. Because I don't think they could afford
New York, LA.
Yeah. Though it's like the Clippers, I don't know, this is kind of like a tangent, but like the Clippers against the Mavs, that's not like an easy out. Like Luka could do some danger. And they went like 6 last year with saying that they can't win like another game. Like Porzingis has been in and out of the lineup. But like their younger players have gotten better. Like the Clippers have kind of like stayed the same almost. So is it like maybe it's not even a guarantee they can get past the Mavs. So I mean, again, that's also like another intriguing matchup. And like you said earlier, like all of these matchups are like interesting in and of themselves.
There's not too many where you're like, oh yeah, that team just wins.
Yeah.
Like it's too easy.
Yeah.
For this one team.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to the political side. So the Israel and Palestine conflict has kind of been blowing up, figuratively and literally. So basically, let's rewind all the way back. So tens of thousands of Palestine worshippers packed into a mosque on the final Friday of Ramadan, and they were protesting in support of 6 Palestinian families facing eviction from their homes on Israel-occupied land claimed by Jewish settlers in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood of East Jerusalem. There's like all these like thousands of people there, and I believe there were 6 deaths. I couldn't actually confirm this or like find what the source was. I was looking up that, so that was my bad. So anyways, fast forward, there's been like Gaza then like does rocket attacks against Israel, and like Israel retaliates, and that's been like the constant thing for the past like 10 days or so. And then as of today, on Wednesday, Netanyahu, I can't say his name, but like
Netanyahu.
Okay, thank you. Is determined to keep bombing Gaza until Israel's aim is met. And then according to Al Jazeera, oh my God, the death toll is at 227 for the Palestinians, which includes 64 children and 38 women. And then compare that to the Israel death toll of 28. And then what appalls me about this whole thing is, so like Biden is also coming out and saying like, oh yeah, we want to have peace talks, we want to like kind of alleviate like all this like fighting and stuff. But then the United States keeps blocking the UN Security Council from issuing a joint statement to end the hostility. So it's like, what way are you doing? So I just kind of threw out all the facts, but like, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling about this whole thing?
I mean, I think it's all just bad. Of course, I don't understand it fully. I only know a little bit about the whole conflict in general. At least is that you know, like you had mentioned, it started kind of with Palestinian families, Israeli landlords trying to kick out Palestinian families from their land or housing or whatever, you know, trying to evict them. And then what I've heard recently was that like Israel's just trying to bomb Hamas like headquarters and like where they stay and where they keep things. And Hamas is like a terrorist group or something, like a Palestinian terrorist group in Gaza. It all just sounds really bad, especially when you see all the things on the news. 17 Palestinians have been killed, and of that, 63 children. And you know, these people are living in fear every day. I think there was a quote that, and I don't know if it was Netanyahu or an Israeli like general or someone said that like that they will continue to bomb until, you know, they get Hamas like stops bombing Israel, and that it's Hamas's fault that they have like not headquarters, but that they like keep their weapons and like where they meet and everything, civilians and things. So they're basically putting the blame on Hamas, saying like, well, you know what? If you want people to die, like civilians to die, you shouldn't put your stuff next to them. Like, I don't think that sounds good, honestly. I just think that comes off as like you don't care about killing people, basically, which I think is wrong. I don't really have a side necessarily in this, other than like I don't think that the Palestinian people should be cowering to like the Israeli missiles and stuff. Also, I don't think like Hamas should be shooting missiles at Israel. I'm kind of like a happy guy. I don't want this shit happening, right? It's getting.
Yeah. You're a lover, not a fighter.
Right? Like, right. It's just like every time you hear, I'm a lover, not a fighter. Like,
yeah. Every
time you hear stuff about this, it's just like, I don't know, it's kind of heartbreaking. And like, I saw a video of the was it Al Jazeera, the building where they're located, getting like leveled, basically.
Oh.
Like Israel, of course, they told the people in the building, they like told them like hours before, they were like, hey, we're gonna bomb your building, like get out,
right,
like evacuate. But they bombed like the news headquarters building or whatever and like leveled it, like destroyed the entire building.
Oh, damn.
And I know there was a lot of outcry about that, saying like people were saying like, oh, you're trying to like get rid of our news or something. I don't know. It's just crazy. There's just so much like he said, she said stuff, and then also it sucks too because like in the Israeli cities, I know for at least Tel Aviv, they have a thing called the Iron Dome. Have you heard about that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a missile defense system. So if missiles are being shot at Tel Aviv, basically, and like I said, I don't know if they have them in other cities as well, Israeli cities, but it'll detect like a bomb, like a rocket or missile or whatever coming towards them and shoot rockets at the rocket to blow it up in the air. So like Israel's like way more protected than like the Palestinian cities, because they don't have that. You know, Israel has all these, not just, I mean, I guess the whole place is Israel. I'm not even really sure about that, but basically the Israelis are way more protected than the Palestinians.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so little Israeli deaths versus Palestinian deaths. It's because they have all this protection and money and everything, and the Palestinians don't really have any of that, and they're getting bombarded with rockets.
Yeah.
And you know, that part I definitely don't like. I just think it's
a
little much.
Yeah.
Biden. You know, and I think he said like, oh yeah, they should stop, and then when he talked to the leaders, he kind of was like, yeah, you know, he kind of changed his tone where he was like, you know, I don't like that you're bombing people, but you do have a right to defend yourself. And I'm kind of like,
come on, man.
I don't know why the U.S. is so like with Israel on everything. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Probably just because like Palestinians are mainly Muslim.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's the truth.
Yeah. I mean, also
And
just like it's been a strong ally since like Israel has formed. So like that just like connection and just that like, oh, it's like always like Israel's the good people, like or like Hamas is the bad terrorists. Like I think that just is like a common like thought process, and especially like older Americans, I think. But I think
so.
At least like the one bright side of the, if there even is a bright side, even though there's all these deaths and all these like rocket shooting, is like I feel like the conversation is like at least happening now. Or maybe I'm just in my closed like left circles, but it's just like, oh, like we should like support Palestine. Like all these people should like they should be able to, you know, be able to go to school and like have like a good life and like all this stuff. And Israel is just like bombing like the crap out of these like people. So it's just I don't know. It's just like
it
nice.
Seems like that, right?
Yeah, it just seems like Omar is out there like preaching like we should be standing with the Palestinian people. You know, Rashida Tlaib, like she was like I think at a tarmac talking to the Bidens for like 10 minutes and like obviously looked like disgruntled, and she's been like for the Palestinian agreements, and you know you got like Bernie and AFC, all these like leftist people who are like for that, which I feel like we haven't seen that. Like it's mostly just been like you either report like for Israel or like all these government officials are for that. And like not that I'm saying that like Hamas or like Palestine is like completely like this like angel group, because like you said, like they do set up like tunnels and like weapons like right by where people live. So it's like if you're doing that, then you actually don't care about the people that you're trying to protect. So and then like I mean, and then Israel does like when they say they like bomb these places, they do give them like warning. Which I guess is nice, but it's still like, hey, you're still bombing these places. So it's just like, I don't know. And then you factor in the whole fact that like Israel was, you know, formed in 1948. Like they're just coming in and just trying to almost like colonize this area. So it's just like, like, do we support that? Obviously not. But like 1948 is also almost like 80 years ago. So it's like the people that have been in Israel and grew up in Israel, like it is their home too. So it's one of those things where it's like, it's such a mess and there's no easy solution. And it's very gray because like I feel like I should be supporting Palestine, but then there's like parts of it that it's just like not for, you know.
Yeah, like there's a ton of gray, like you said. There's a ton of gray in the middle, and that's why I'm like, I don't know what I should think, you know. Not should think, but like I don't know what my opinion should be on this. Other than like I wish there wasn't as much violence as there is, because it's just ridiculous. And then like I said earlier, you hear about just like children getting killed, and that's, no one wants to see children get killed. That's horrific.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish the world was a better place, honestly.
Yeah.
And it just makes you think like, wow, we don't have to think about any of that stuff here.
Oh, for sure.
Like, we live in the U.S. Like, there's no worry about that happening.
Yes.
It's like super, just a privileged, like I just feel like really privileged, and that sometimes I don't think about that. Like I take it for advantage, you know?
Oh, absolutely. Where it's just like
for granted.
Or like your complaint is like my Uber Eats was 5 minutes late. Like shut
yeah,
the fuck up, man.
Like holy
yeah,
shit, dude. Why? I'm not getting bombed at least.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I wish no one was getting bombed. Is the thing.
Right. Yeah. Well, prayers to all those people, and just hopefully that they get through it. But
like, hopefully it comes to an end like very soon rather than later.
Yeah. All right. So we changed this up, I think, like a month ago, where we end with like a TV, movie, book recommendation, because like typically when we talk about political stuff, it's like a downer. So hopefully this should be an upper. So Joe, what do you got for any media recommendations?
All right. So to switch the pace of this a little bit, or the direction to more happy for sure. I don't really read, honestly.
That's fair.
But I watch like Netflix and stuff. And I did see a movie recently at the movies. It was the first time in over a year. It was pretty cool. My girlfriend, her favorite movie and series, I guess I should say, is Saw.
Really?
Yeah. She loves Saw. And to me, I'm like, how could you love Saw? Like, that shit is gross.
Oh, I love Saw. Saw is great.
Like, it's just torture porn.
Oh, it's
just torture porn. It has a whole, like, if you watch it, of course, it has a whole, like, you know, plot and everything, and like reasons why the person kills whoever he kills, whatever. But we watched Spiral, the new Saw movie that just came out, that starred and was either directed or produced. I don't think directed, but produced by Chris Rock.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if you were aware of that. Sounds like you weren't.
No, I was not.
Yeah. So it just came out like last week. She went on Thursday night for the midnight premiere with her brother to watch it. And then later that Friday, she came over, and then we went to go watch it.
Oh,
so she watched it
twice.
in the same day.
She is dedicated.
In the same day.
She loves Saw.
Yeah, she loves it. She loves Saw, and she loved that movie. Like, she liked it a lot. And I don't really like Saw generally, just because I'm not like super into the just gore and people getting tortured, really.
Their legs sawed off.
But you know, I enjoyed that movie. Yeah, I enjoyed that movie. It was pretty well done. So I would, if you are a fan of horror/gore movies, or like Saw in general, I would say go watch that movie.
Yeah.
I think it's worth it.
I'm a big fan of Saw. I think I stopped.
Entertaining.
Yeah. I think I stopped around like the 7th Saw, just because it kind of was like, okay, like we get it. Like they're trapped in some house or some like place. Like there's some twist at the end. Oh my god, what happened? Those movies are great. I'll definitely have to check that out. So my recommendation, I recommended it, I think last time, but I'm going to do it again because the show is just like fantastic, and like I think the best show I've watched since like Game of Thrones recently. But like Ted Lasso at Apple TV. And I just found out too, and I know you're a big Scrubs fan, the person that created Ted Lasso also created Scrubs. So like it is like, and it makes so much sense because it's such like a feel
What?
good like TV show. And if you're unaware with it, so basically, uh, Jason Sudeikis. I always mix up Jason Sudeikis and Ed Helms. Basically, he's a football coach who coached at like
I
Wichita
don't blame
State.
you.
Then he goes over and he like coaches like a fake Premier League team. Um, but like it is Premier League and he has no idea what he's doing. But he's like this happy-go-lucky like Southerner guy, and he's like trying to like coach his team up, and he has no idea what soccer is and like all this stuff. But it's just like a really good show because it makes you laugh, like it makes you cry. It like does basically it is like Scrubs, but just like with like sports and stuff. And like it's one of those shows where they don't show the soccer, like they show it like 2 minutes an episode, if that. And like some episodes they show more, some they don't show it at all. So it's like one of those shows where it's like you don't have to enjoy the soccer, but I don't know, it was phenomenal. And I recommend.
Nice.
It's short too, so if you like don't want to pay for another Apple TV subscription, just like do the trial for 7 days, bang it out, and then like cancel. But
Nice.
that's my rec.
I do. Okay, you were right. I do love Scrubs. I've watched it like 3 times through.
Yeah.
Great show.
Yeah.
Love, love, love Scrubs. And I didn't know about this show, so I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I do like Jason Sudeikis. And when you said that it's, based on like he's coaching soccer, but they don't really show soccer, it kind of reminds me of Blue Mountain State.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
is it sort of like that, where it's like based around this sport that they barely show them play, if at all?
So I think with Blue Mountain State, they don't show them playing a game like ever. I don't think. Or maybe like once or twice. They do show more.
I think the last episode, like the series finale, they showed the game, like part of the game.
Right.
But like mostly it's like shots at practice, and they'll show like a play or two of them practicing, and then some silly stuff happening, and then it's usually like parties or whatever, because it's like a college, it's like a college bro show.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Hilarious though.
Yeah.
But
Oh, great. It's a phenomenal show. And then
Ted Lasso.
So yeah, that is. I say it's like the Blue Mountain State where they don't show a lot of the games, but they do show more games. So it's not.
Okay.
They don't go like all in, or like they don't like show a game like before, like and all the pregame stuff, and then a postgame. Like they typically have some highlights. It's just not. It's not like the centerpiece. Like there's like the owner of the team. And then like there's like a girlfriend of one of the players, like they like but kind of like bond, and there's like a little storyline like that side. And I don't know, it's just great. It's a phenomenal show.
It's a great show that you recommend.
Yes. So this is a totally random question, but like I've always heard that going to the movies in LA is like an experience like no other. Is that true?
What is that? What is that?
I don't know. So I don't know. I think it was just like a podcast or like a couple that I've heard where it's like, oh yeah, I'd love going to the movies in LA. Like people are like cheering and like it's like a more like lively experience. Like, is that a thing or no?
Maybe they meant like specific theaters, but
Okay.
like when I went, no, everybody was quiet. Like,
Okay.
usually when I go, I don't go to the movies that often, honestly, but like usually when I go, I don't know, it's normal to me. I haven't experienced anything here that's way different from something I've experienced in Rochester, so I don't think that there's anything different. But maybe if you go to like movie theaters in like Hollywood or like areas like that, or maybe yeah, I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of. Like maybe go to like Hollywood or something. People are like act differently because that's where like that's Hollywood,
Yeah. Okay. No, that.
But
that
like
makes
I have no idea what about that, honestly, and I don't think that's a thing.
Right. Okay.
But it
Plus,
could
like,
be.
who goes to movies? I guess. Like, I feel like movies are kind of trending. Wait, even though you said that your girlfriend went, but
Yeah.
and you went too. So.
Some people just love going to the movies, and then other people like me, I'm like, I'd rather like watch a movie at home. If I'm gonna watch a movie.
Yeah.
So I love like the direct to like Netflix releasing a movie or Hulu or Apple TV, whatever.
Yeah.
I like the just digitally released movies a lot because I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, just stay put. My parents like love going to the movies. They've gone to the movie like they go like every Friday. They go to the Pittsburgh Plaza for my Rochester homies. And they go like they eat at like Benucci's and then like go to see a movie.
Well, that's cute to have that, especially if you're an older couple, have a routine and like go out and do things rather than be at home all the time.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think that wraps it up. Thank you, Joe, for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, talk sports, talk politics, and now TV.
Appreciate that. Yeah, for sure. I like this segment, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You can follow us on Twitter at Sports Snowflake. You can follow us on Instagram at Snowflake Sports. You can follow me personally at Lucky Profession on Twitter, and you can follow Joe at JD Crespo 92. Correct, Mr.
Yes.
Joe. Okay. This has been the Snowflake Sports podcast. I'm your host Dan, and keep them takes soft and snowy.